I'm a professional fitness and movement coach, and this is the position that I squat in. Same with my clients. And if your first thought is, that's bad for your knees, you're not alone, and that's why this week's video is going to explain to you exactly not only why it's not bad for your knees, but why it's actually better for your hips and your low back. Stay tuned. I'm Griffin from the North Star Body. Welcome back to my channel. We're talking all things resilience of the muscles, joints, and nervous system. And we're talking all about the controversial knees in squat. Now for context, I'm in my late 30s, and every single week I run, I jump, I lift, I kickbox, I play racket sports, and I sprint at full intensity. I squat with my knees in, and my knees feel great. Now just to be clear, I am not advocating to just let your knees collapse in without thinking about it. You do not want to end up squatting like this guy, trust me. So in order to understand how and why I squat with my knees in, we first have to understand why people are told to squat with their knees out. And that has to do with the thigh bone lining up with the shin bone, or the common cue, knees tracking over the toes. When you're loading the legs, the knees should be tracking over the toes. The thigh bone and the shin bone should be facing the same direction. If they're not, then our knees are in danger of injury from that twisting, shearing force. So if you're standing with your feet slightly turned out, what did the brilliant fitness industry decide to cue in order to avoid this twisting motion at the knee? Shove your knees out to track over your toes. There are problems with that though. But I'd like to lead with a question. Why do the knees seem to naturally want to go in? If the knees tracking over the toes is so healthy, why do beginners need to be cued to shove them out? The answer is that it conflicts with our basic anatomy. That's not how the human body moves. Now, if you're not an anatomy nerd, no problem. I'm going to break it down really simply. A muscle needs to be able to stretch under tension before it contracts with full power. Just like a slingshot or a bow and arrow. In order to stretch and load those glutes, we have three main joint actions. The first one is the trunk and the thighs coming closer together, known as hip flexion. The second is internal rotation of that thigh bone. And the third is what's called adduction, or the coming in of the thigh bone toward the center line. Now, if you're squatting like this, yes, your trunk and your thigh are coming closer to each other, but the other two actions aren't allowed to take place. In fact, the opposite is happening. The thigh bone is turning outward, and the thigh bones are coming out away from center line. This doesn't allow the glutes to lengthen fully. Now, some people say, so what? Small price to pay to protect my knees. Not so fast. If you never allow the glutes to lengthen fully, they become stuck in a shortened position. And like any muscle that's stuck in a shortened position, this causes problems. The muscle fibers of the glute max, and also some of the deeper external rotators underneath the glute, like the piriformis, they attach at the very base of the spine and they wrap around the buttocks. So you can imagine that if they're stuck in a shortened position, they're compressing inward toward that base of the spine. So the inability to rotate and bring the thighs inward keeps pressure on that low back. The sciatic nerve passes through here, which is why the ability to internally rotate the thighs correlates with freedom of the sciatic nerve, and why being stuck in an externally rotated position, think knees out, is often correlated with symptoms of sciatica. Now let's talk about the problems that happen when you try to move with your glutes stuck in a shortened position. If your glutes can't lengthen all the way, then they can't contract all the way. You can't go somewhere if you're already there. So if your glutes are stuck short, you don't have full access to them during movement. So to complete whatever task you're doing, be it running, jumping, playing, or walking even, the part of the glutes job that the glute can't do, because it doesn't have the active range that it's supposed to have, it's going to be taken over by other parts of the body, quads, low back, etc. And these are called movement compensations. Compensating once or twice isn't a big deal, but if every single step you take doesn't involve the glutes properly, that's probably contributing to the wear and tear you attribute to getting older. Speaking of getting older, my goal here and my goal for my clients is to avoid what I call middle-age hell. And if you're not middle-aged, you will be soon enough. No escaping father time. We don't want to be waking up every single day with back and knee and hip pain. We don't want to hit the gym every day but struggle to walk. We don't want to get injured doing stuff outside of the gym. And we don't want to be walking around feeling like we always need to stretch, but then when we do stretch, it doesn't even help us. So here's one solution. What if you could change something about the way that you squat to start to relieve the pain associated with shortened glutes, unlock freedom of movement outside the gym, and build a strong athletic lower body. Enter the one-of-a-kind fitness squat. If you've never heard of one-of-a-kind fitness, or OKF as we call it, it is a strength training system that has modified a lot of conventional lifts to prioritize strengthening natural athletic patterns like walking, running, and jumping. Now, the OKF squat looks something like this. This is the OKF founder, Devin Brown, performing it with a safety bar. And I consider this to be one of the best full body exercises of all time. But I don't get it. Didn't you say the knees going in was bad? No. I said the knees and the toes facing different directions was bad. That's not the same thing. In fact, this is the single most important thing that makes the OKF squat different. Instead of shoving the knees out to track over the toes, we flip that on its head and turn the toes in to match the natural direction of the knees. What do you mean, natural direction of the knees? Remember how we talked about the loading of the glutes? This answers my question from earlier. Why does the novice gym goer seem to naturally want to collapse the knees in unless their coach cues them otherwise? It's because that's how the glutes load. That's how we leverage them for the most power as we go down into a squat. The OKF squat respects this by allowing the glutes to load fully and adjusting the feet inward to make sure that the knees aren't collapsing and that the thigh and the shin bone are still facing the same direction. We call this global internal rotation, meaning the whole leg and foot together is turning inward, as opposed to the problem pattern called knee valgus, where again, two different directions, knee collapsing in, dangerous for the ACL. They're not the same. Now, I said I think this is one of the greatest full body exercises of all time, so what else makes it different? Well, I wouldn't be praising anything this much if it didn't include breathing. The OKF system, as well as everything I do in my personal approach to coaching, involves breathing. Breathing overlays every single thing we do, and it's no different for working out or athletic movement. The OKF squat and all OKF movements emphasize breathing mechanics that decompress the spine while allowing the tissue around the abdomen to lengthen and maintain tension. In other words, we use our breathing mechanics to counteract the compressive load that force bearing has on the spine. Which brings me to the next thing that makes the OKF squat unique is its emphasis on full body connections. In conventional training, we often ignore the parts of the body that aren't doing the direct work. For example, when we squat, it's a lower body exercise, and a lot of the time, people forget about the shoulders and the rib cage and the neck, allowing things like the shoulders falling back, the ribs popping up, and the neck either smushing down or the chin pointing way up. The OKF squat respects the idea that the whole body is going to adapt to the movement, not just the parts you want to adapt. So if you want to build strong, stable legs with the squat, you want to make sure that that tension you're after is connected to tensions in other parts of the body. Stable, pressurized midsection, neutral shoulders with muscles active all around it. You can't do an OKF squat if any part of your body is being lazy. And one more thing that makes it different is the pressure through the ball of the foot. During athletic movement, rarely if ever do we transfer force through the heel. So I don't drive force through my heels when I'm squatting. In the OKF squat, pressure stays between the midfoot and the ball of the foot for maximum carryover to real movement and less risk of injury. Okay, so you want to try this squat. I don't recommend just turning your feet and knees in and hoping for the best. So you've got some options. From most basic to most advanced. The first option is check out the OKF Instagram page. It's undergoing a little facelift at the time of this video, but if you want to understand the system, the approach, the philosophy, what we're trying to achieve by training the way that we train, there's a lot of free content there. Option 2 would be the OKF 8-week foundations course. This is a huge value and it comes with the OKF reactive balls, which we use for shoulder stability. All the OKF foundational exercises are there, including the squat, detailed video tutorials, workout programming examples, and it's lifetime access. I'll link that down in the description as well. And of course, the final and most premium option would be one-to-one coaching. I myself am a certified OKF coach, so if you're interested in really dialing in the details as they apply to your body and your situation, you can apply for coaching with me. I'll link that down below as well. Bonus option, you can join my Skool community for free. It launches on February 14th, and it's a one-stop shop, not just for all the movement and fitness and biomechanics stuff, including OKF principles and exercises, but also breath science, nervous system regulation, stress and anxiety management, self-defense and personal safety, and physical presence. Make sure you join my email newsletter or follow me on Instagram so you don't miss the launch, because it's only going to be free for a short time before it moves to a monthly subscription fee. For now, stay strong, stay athletic, and I'll see you in the Skool community.